Everybody in the tank would have to be okay with having a kid in the tank. But you have like a booster seat for like your 12-year-old or whatever, and he's having a good time.
Hang on.
Welcome to episode 27
of Hang On, the podcast, featuring Nick Hume and Blake Carroll. This is good. This is golden. Hang on. Episode 1. So I guess one thing, we have no claims to any of these business ideas. So like if anyone listening wants to, take them and run with them, so be it. None of this is trademarked.
All of it's trademarked.
None of it's trademarked or copyright.
So making a business was so easy. We'd leave that to you. And we're just going to discuss all the hard parts, like what it is you're going to be doing.
Make note that neither of us have any business experience whatsoever.
Please, disclaimer at the beginning. We have
zero.
Less than zero.
Yeah, like
you may think, but they're going to school or went to school. No. No.
I did go to school for finance for 1 year, but that didn't last very long. So.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even have a high school course about finance. I don't know if they offered one. I'm sure they do now, but I definitely didn't take it. I was taking like AP courses so that college would be less useful.
Is it useful anyway?
It's useful to say you have the degree, but it's,
definitely not useful.
Yeah. Man, I can't stop staring at this website.
Which one?
So in Vegas, there's a company called Dig This Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
It is an adult playground.
Oh, that's the one
for heavy construction equipment.
I had something similar to that only. Remember?
Yeah. So of course you have to take like an instruction class, like a safety course with them.
I'm out.
That's not the. I mean that kind of makes sense.
Can I just sign a waiver?
So you definitely do also have to sign a waiver. But like someone's got to teach you how to use it. And I assume if you know how to use it, you would just go rent one and not do this. The other thing you need to do is a breathalyzer test, which I feel like really limits you in Las Vegas for like what you're doing that day.
Is it like if you're 0.01 you can't do it, or like just less than like
it just
1.0?
Says you have to pass one. So I don't know if you have to be above or below a certain limit. It does seem odd that they don't test you for anything else. Like you could be high as shit and they don't care. It's just some lawyer said like, you got to do a breathalyzer. I'm looking at their photos right now. It looks exciting. It looks like, but see, here's the thing. They have a giant sandbox, right? And you're digging up and then you just refill the hole, right? What if you just started building a dig site for like an actual building and then just tricked everybody into paying you to do their dirty work?
Like they actually have a contract to build a building, and so the instructional videos like, so here's what you're going to go do today. You're going to go dig a 8x8 square 2 feet deep. And you over there with a concrete truck, you're going to come by and pour the concrete. Yeah.
So like, obviously you train everybody and you have like one guy that's, near retirement age, but doesn't want to pour concrete for a living anymore. Yeah. And he just spots and makes sure everything's going okay. So you accidentally build a building, right? And people paid you to do it. That's just pouring money into your pocket, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Maybe that's why you have to be breathalyzed.
Right. You need it. It's part of the contract for building the mystery building. It's like you're actually developing the Las Vegas Strip while you're doing this. It just seems awful in Las Vegas, though, because it'd be so hot.
Yeah, they have air conditioning in those front end loaders. Because I'm not sitting in a glass box in the middle of the desert in Las Vegas.
Oh man, they get so much money for this too. Hundreds of dollars an hour.
What?
Yeah.
To drive what are we talking about here?
So you get like a bulldozer or an excavator. Like what else? Ooh, they also do kids. So I guess if you're a child, you still have to do it.
Pass the breathalyzer?
No. All right, here you go. Big dig excavator, big dig bulldozer, mini excavator. So that's a little bit cheaper. Aggressive session. Okay, now from $650 for 30 minutes. That's so expensive.
It's pretty aggressive.
I think I could rent one of those and just dig up my whole yard for that kind of money.
$650 for 30 minutes?
Some of the other ones, like the main one, is $270 for 90 minutes. It still seems high. Like, what are they providing you other than dirt? Because, like I said,
It has to be insurance. Insurance has got to be the thing.
Yeah, or these things are just so expensive.
Or they're just like, hey, people are going to stop coming to this pretty soon, so we have to gouge people as much as we can. We got it going.
Well, I mean, you would definitely, here's my financial knowledge, you would definitely raise the price if you keep having way too many people show up.
Yeah. Maybe they go down. I feel like that's a lot of money, though.
I feel like if I showed up and I was in an excavator and some guy...
Why don't you just become a general contractor and own a bunch of equipment to build buildings, and then in your off time also have people pay to use your...
Like the big stuff?
If they're all right, hear me out. All right. You own an equipment rental business.
Yeah.
And when the equipment's not being rented by people to do actual work, you have people come over and drive your equipment and pay $275 every, what was it, hour and a half?
Man, that seems pretty good.
Like double dip. Why aren't those guys double dipping? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like rent out the equipment, but then also when it's not being rented out, have random people who aren't drunk, possibly.
Could be high, though.
Drive the equipment and do whatever they want.
I wonder if they said, like, please don't do weed before you show up because we're not going to pull your hair or make you do a piss test.
Well, what if we just said, please don't be drunk, and then we don't make them breathalyze? Or what if we just have a bar and we say, hey, we really don't care?
Well, I would assume the insurance says, hey, people can't do the thing if they're drunk. So you breathalyze them.
Yeah, we just got to have an airtight waiver.
Yeah, if you just pass the breathalyzer initially, it's like a lot of jobs. Like you breathalyze when you go in, but they don't breathalyze you on the way out.
Yeah, so you got those, liquid lunches.
Yeah, and I'm sure these things have cup holders in them.
Yeah.
And I feel like anytime you get...
Look, I've been by a construction site. Those people are most likely drunk or on heroin or on the combination of the two.
Well, yeah. And in the Midwest, it's meth, right?
Yeah. I mean, up here it's meth too, so.
It does look fun, right? I would definitely do it once.
I would not pay $275 to do it for an hour and a half.
No, not at all.
I don't want to sit in a glass cube in the middle of the desert in Las Vegas for an hour and a half. I don't care if somebody's paying me $275.
Right. Well, not only that, but like, it's got to be rough for the instructors who like have to tell people the same 6 levers every single day, and they keep going left, and you're like, no, that's the wrong lever. You're like, I think I'm doing this right. I think, and you're like, no, dude, it's just spinning around the wrong axis. It's like, oh my god.
How many people you think get out there? They paid for an hour and a half, and like 15 minutes in, they're like, I want my money back.
Yeah,
and I'm done.
Like, what did I do? Like, this is so dumb. I'm digging a hole. Okay, they do have bobcats too.
Yeah, but it would be way cooler just get an old like Russian tank in some old junk cars and let people drive over cars with tanks. I'd be way more likely to pay $300 to $500 to drive a tank around in the desert than I would be to drive an excavator around in the desert.
I would pay that too, but I would have to launch at least one tank round.
What if we get tanks and some sort of laser tag system and or paintball system, and we have multiple tanks and groups can come out? You know how they have those where you can go and fly the plane and you like do the simulated dogfighting and they go up there and train you? It's the same idea, but it's tanks. So it could be a team building. So you bring your corporate team building, you bring your group out, you get, maybe there's one guy, an instructor, if you will, who's in each tank, but then there's other people in the tanks. You go through a 10-minute crash course, and then you're just out there in a big field / desert, shooting at each other. I would say paintball, if you could have some sort of like tank round that is a paintball, would be way cooler than the laser, because then you'd have to have people actually loading it, and then the tank would get hit by things.
Oh, absolutely. I feel
like that's a pretty easy, that's a doable thing, right?
Well,
I don't know how much a tank is, but I feel like you can probably get one for like 30-40 grand.
Yeah.
For like a cheap Russian tank,
Something. Yeah, it's not going to be an Abram, but...
Yeah.
Like you want something from World War One or two that's like you don't want an auto.
That's going to be too
targeting.
expensive.
Okay.
That's going to be too expensive. And yeah, no like computer. We're talking about like Vietnam era Russian tanks. You know what I'm saying? Cold War era Russian tanks.
So I love the idea of no computers on board because I feel like that's just going to break.
It gets too complicated. They're not going to be able to learn how to do that in like 10 minutes. They're just going to be confused the whole time.
I think it would have to be one of those systems
How many
where
tanks
every
do we need?
15 minutes y'all rotate. So like the gunner would have to change with the driver.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people would fit in each tank.
Well, or like you just let people choose. You know, they're on their own team, so they figure it out. You know.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do.
I'd gladly pay. You know, if it was like a team price, you know, because I feel like you could do that. I feel like you could just charge by the tank. You don't need to charge by the person because it doesn't matter if you have one person or 4 people in the tank. I would gladly, if I had like 3 other people go in, like $1,500 an hour to drive around a tank and shoot it.
No joke.
Split 3 or 4 ways. You're talking, you know what, $500 if it's 3 ways.
Yeah. I mean, I went paintballing with my brother-in-law the other day, and I spent like $200 or $300 for a few hours.
Yeah,
and we're talking the same price for.
And we're talking
tank?
an hour of go time, so that doesn't include your downtime. You're like sitting, and then if you wanted like a cheaper thing, you know, $50, drive the tank over an old car. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, you would definitely have to. So you would need a tank mechanic as well, and I feel like if you're getting Russian tanks, you have to get a Russian guy.
I mean, maybe we can find U.S. tanks. I don't know. Maybe that would be, you'd have to weigh out the cost of repairing Russian tanks versus the cost of repairing American tanks.
That's true. But they wouldn't even have to be
there's plenty of tank mechanics that are just getting out of the Army that will be happy to like live in Las Vegas and make, you know, $20 an hour.
Man, that's a good deal. Because I don't know. Land in Vegas has to be cheap. Like once you get people off the strip, like it's just desert, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you do with it has got to be cheap. And just having like a bus shuttle people out.
Yeah, because you're gonna want to have something on the strip, like you know, a storefront or like a thing where people can walk in and see it. I think that's what probably a lot of people miss in Vegas because there are those things like the dig place we were talking about earlier, but they don't have anything on the strip where somebody walking by can be like,
yeah,
you
just park a tank out front.
Dude,
easy.
Yeah.
You want to drive this tank to the tank place and shoot people with the tank?
And then just have a bus, drinks and, you know, TV, you know, Wi-Fi, a nice bus to shuttle people back and forth.
I feel like you could get away with just breathalyzing the person that was say they would be the driver. So like if you had a group of 4 guys, you'd have to have a DD anyway to get home.
I mean, it's a tank. Like, what are they going to do? Like, I mean, they hit something else. Nothing's going to happen.
You could put a rev limiter on there so it can only go 15 miles an hour, right? You wouldn't need to go that
The tanks
fast.
we're talking about are probably only going 15, 20 miles an hour anyway.
I think we have a fast tank too.
Maybe different tanks. Maybe like an artillery type thing, you know? Ooh, and then you step it up even more and get some helicopters out there. People can be like gunners and helicopters. That may be taking it a little too far.
No.
Maybe
drones,
down the road.
Drone, you get a $20 drone.
But like right now, I think 6 tanks, 3 per side, you know, a blue tank and a red tank. Can't call them country name. People get mad, you know, like, just, you know, liberals. They won't like it.
I do love, because you can have scenarios with that, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're just shooting other tanks, it gets boring. But if you have to like go capture the flag and you're setting up like traps and stuff, hell yeah.
Yeah, and I think like you could build pay the big mover people, with the big dick excavator over there to come build you some fake like trenches and
oh for sure. Yeah, have like water features that you could drive across or something.
I really want to add like infantry and like a full paintball thing to this, but then someone's getting run over by the tank, and I'm not trying to have to deal with that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I would be worried that the tanks would run into each other, and you would have like acres of land, right? And you know they'd run into each other.
I'm not even really worried about the tanks running into each other. Like nothing's really going to happen at that point. I mean, somebody might get a headache or something, but like nobody, like it's a tank,
right?
Nothing's happening. But like if you got people walking around on the ground, someone's getting run over.
Yeah, man.
Maybe. Hey, what about this? You have the instructors or whatever do the driving, and then you have like your tank commander and like your loader and your gunner. And like your other, they have 2 drivers, you know, so they have a backup driver and like a main driver.
Gotcha.
at least on older ones. I don't know too much about the newer ones, but the guy who's the main driving the tank is actually your instructor. So he actually, you don't have to worry about him hitting something else or, flipping the tank over. Or something
that's probably pretty good. Yeah. And then we have other tanks they could drive.
And like, he'll do whatever the commander and like the people say, as long as it's not going to damage the tank or something else.
Easy. Yeah, because you just give them a map and they just say, hey, we're going to go here. And some guys on radios with the other tanks, right? Like you would definitely record all the radios and put GoPros all over the tank.
Have drones all over it, like videotaping everything. Yeah.
Because my wife and I went on a helicopter thing and it was expensive, but also it was like, hey, for $50, here's the footage from the helicopter. And you're like, well, I'm suckered into buying that because...
Just whatever you're shooting at the other tanks, like if you could make them somehow like kind of explode, like, fireworks or something, I feel like that would be.
You can just put pressure sensors on the back, and if it gets hit, like all the screens of the maps go away, right? Or your gun system goes away and you can't shoot anymore.
Yeah.
And then you got to like go back home and hit the
repair button. Or
yeah. Like that, and then they like wipe off the paint, hose you down, give you some more diesel. Easy. It's so other than tanks, it's so cheap. See, brilliant ideas.
I mean, I feel like the tanks is probably not that expensive.
Hold on, there's something called driveatank.com. Look, we don't have to come up with new ideas, right? Introducing the Sherman driver experience.
Yeah, that's in Georgia though.
Oh, is it?
There is a place where you can drive a tank in Georgia, but you can't like drive a tank and shoot at other tanks and like.
Oh, that's just dumb, right? What Battlefield Vegas? Hold on.
You're only crushing a car with a tank. We're going far. So Battlefield Vegas, call us. We got some ideas.
Best machine gun shooting. No. That's just no. That's not what we're talking about. Free Humvee pickup. Yeah. So that's cool, right?
Ooh.
Just get an APC and show up, pick everybody up.
Deuce and a halves and or Humvees to drive people out there instead of the van. That's a good idea.
They are getting rid of all sorts of good stuff from the Middle East and on the cheap.
Yeah.
We just need to buy car. Oh, they only have tank crush.
$2,500.
What?
Whoa! To be the driver?
To be the driver. Not bad.
Tank once in service in the British Army, right? So it's not even American.
It's a bullshit ass tank.
The Beast.
$2,500 to crush a car with it. We have to be able to beat that price. Like that can't even. We're going volume here.
You don't even get to pick the car. Like you can't be like it's got to be a Honda Civic.
Yeah, I feel like they're wasting so much. Is if you do our idea, you have 3 or 4 people in there at the same time. So that it cuts down on the cost per person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, I will say, they have grouped a whole bunch of historic weapons you can shoot off. That's
yeah,
great.
I've seen that. Yeah.
But anybody can shoot a gun. Oh, but they do have a flamethrower. So I'm going to back up and say we will have flamethrowers. Oh, why do they?
So if I want to drive a tank over a car and shoot it, I'm $5,000 in.
All right, let's just go. All right, eBay Motors. Perfect. Here we go. Top 10 tanks from military. Here we go. eBay Motors has a tank for sale.
What are we looking at?
$4,000 for like World War II. It's called a Marmon Harrington.
Does it look cool?
It looks awesome. I mean, how rough is a tank? We are talking an engine. We are talking tire tracks. I mean, it's basically a tractor, right? And then it just has like a gun port on it.
Is that $4,000? Is that just like a display, or is that like actually do things?
I would assume it's not running. But I mean, like you just drop a GM motor.
I mean, I was thinking like $50,000 a tank, and I still think we're pretty cheap because we're talking 6 tanks. So what is that?
Ooh, they have so many good options here. Own a tank, drivetanks.com. This is 100%. Do you call the army up and just be like, I would like a tank, please?
Probably not.
Can a civilian buy a tank off the line?
Here we go. Russian, World War II, T-34s.
The largest stock of military vehicles.
Where are you at?
Tanks a lot.
Tanks a lot. What a great name.
Oh, man. If these are cheap enough, I might just go buy a tank. I feel like if you guys are driving up the driveway and you saw a tank, you'd be like, all right, we did it.
I got a T-34 for 83 grand.
I'm not kidding. This that goes tank, APC, tank, 2005 Shelby GT, tank.
Dude, we don't even need like real, like nice tanks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, yeah, because you want
like here's a self-propelled howitzer, right? No one's going to care that that's not like an actual tank. Yeah. And $22,000 a piece. Let's just go ahead and say you got conservatively 75 grand a tank.
Yeah.
So 75 grand a tank times 6. What are we at there? I'm bad at math.
Yeah.
75 times 6. So we're at $450,000 right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like as long as you keep them up in good shape, it's not like you lose that money. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an asset that the business has. You can sell things for more.
Absolutely.
Maybe you even go in and you actually shop around and you buy a tank that maybe is I don't want to say appreciating, but like at least something that may have some historical value. Maybe it's 100,000 versus 75,000, but
when you go to sell it,
people are actually interested in buying it, and you don't have 6 like pieces of junk from 1971 that nobody cares about.
I feel like you would need to have a dedicated mechanic and like a good
probably
workshop.
A dedicated mechanic crew. But even then, all the tools and stuff, assets, like those aren't going to lose value, you know?
Yeah. And
Snap-on tools. We'll just buy a Snap-on truck, the whole thing.
Yeah. Why not? It's probably like 50 grand.
I mean, we're going to need it. So
there's enough steel in a Snap-on truck to make a tank.
Probably.
That's fantastic.
I mean, I would gladly, if I were going to Vegas, especially because I feel like people go to Vegas and they know they're going to spend money.
Yeah.
If I were going to Vegas with 3 or 4 friends, I would gladly drop $500 to $1,000 to go do like tank battles out in the desert with my friends.
And as you invest, you get more tanks, more people want to join. It gets bigger.
I think there's a point at which you have too many tanks because like you don't want the tanks just sitting there not doing anything. I guess you also want some reserve tanks. So if one of your tanks is down, you're not losing out on potential money.
Yeah.
Because I guess it doesn't really cost anything for the tank to sit there. You know, it's not like because you're going to keep it, probably build some big metal building to house these things in.
Yeah.
So like your overhead for the property is going to be a big metal building.
Yeah. A gift shop.
And an office.
Yep.
In places where people can buy $100 to buy all the footage from inside
footage. We'll get those little like 1/18th scale replicas of the tanks.
We'll have drones that fly around and like video the battle and stuff that's going on, you know?
Oh yeah.
Maybe even if you got a guy who doesn't want to, you know, spend that much money on riding in the tank, he can be like the drone guy, like the observation, you know, he can be on the radios with the guys in the tank, and he gets like one drone and he can fly it around and be like,
or you just have some guy in a Humvee that drives around and the tank's got to find the Humvee and shoot it.
I mean, there's all kinds of.
I would drive a Humvee if tanks were chasing me, like an old H1, and you get the sunroof on it.
I feel like people, if they didn't want to spend the amount of money on the tank, they would just pay to drive around an H1 in the desert.
There you go. So I was thinking, maybe you have some experience with this, but instead of taking to the land, what if we took to the sea and got some old Navy boats and hooked up some paintballs to that? Got ourselves a little piece of the ocean. Too big?
Yeah, I feel like that would just be too hard. Yeah.
Like an old World War II gunboats versus each other.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in, but I feel like
we don't want to go crazy with our ideas.
I feel like the tank thing is doable.
Yeah,
and would be entertaining. I would totally ride around in a tank and shoot at my buddies in other tanks.
Yeah, and I think like depending on what it was, you could definitely have like a kid seat. Like everybody in the tank would have to be okay with having a kid in the tank. But you have like a booster seat for like your 12-year-old or whatever, and he's having a good time. Give him something to like a little joystick.
Yeah.
Or a camera or something to like point. I don't know. That would have been cool. I'd have been 12 and had that.
I'm not paying $800 though for my 12-year-old to ride in a tank. I'll just let him like sit inside of it real quick before we go. You know?
So
like I don't really see this being like a family oriented place. This is like where dudes come on their bachelor parties and like just dudes who happen to be in Vegas hanging out.
That's also true. What are the World War II trains? So what if we had like legit track and you'd race real size trains?
Nah, I'm out.
Out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Even though the Germans, I was thinking the Germans had howitzers that they put on trains.
Yeah, those are a little big though.
They are, yeah,
a little large.
You can hit your hotel from here, and we'd be like 15 miles out. That'd be fantastic. Anything else with the tanks?
I just want to own 6 tanks. Like,
yeah, right. Because you're gonna have a day where there's like slow people, and you just get to take tanks out and do that.
I mean, I feel like you start with the tanks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you expand from there because the tanks battling each other. We've seen some places where you can drive tanks. We've seen some places where you can run over cars with tanks, but we haven't seen anywhere where you can like battle in tanks. And I think that would be a huge selling point. I think people would be like, that would be awesome to do, you know? But then you can expand from there and then do the different types of guns where people can shoot, where they can shoot like miniguns or 50 cals or whatever the case, or rocket launch RPGs, like kind of mortars, any kind of weapon that they would want to shoot. And then you can, from there, you could add on the equipment stuff. Like I want to drive a big rig and I have like a little bit of like a paved like area where someone can drive a big rig, or I want to drive an excavator and they can drive the excavator, or I want to get some like dune buggies out there where people can just like whip around the desert in dune buggies. I mean, I feel like as you make money, you can just constantly expand until like these other people are just kind of like, they're limiting themselves and they're pigeonholing themselves into like shooting guns or driving big rig equipment. I'm talking about having like hundreds of acres and basically like an amusement park of like things for people to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I want to come here and I want to spend, I want to shoot a mortar off. I want to shoot a minigun, and then I want to go drive a big rig. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Maybe have some like helicopters, do some skydiving, just kind of like, all over the place. Because if you build like a little dirt strip out in the desert, then you can have all kinds of, now, once you start getting in airplanes, I feel like it gets kind of expensive, but I feel like people would pay a good bit of money to go and, fly in vintage airplanes. Like imagine if you had a P-51 Mustang that people could pay to fly in. That's not going to be something that your average dude is going to come and be like, I'm going to pay in a P-50. But like, you're going to have people from all over the world who have lots of money. And they're like, it's my dream to fly in a P-51 Mustang. And they're going to pay lots of money to fly in a P-51 Mustang.
I'll be honest, I did have to Google P-51 Mustang. Now that I see it, it's iconic. But I couldn't have drawn it if you had asked. All right. It does look super cool. Again, like you need 2 amazing people. One, a lawyer who can make sure all the paperwork's squared away so we don't get sued out the ass when everybody dies. How many people would have to die before you close the site? Because I feel like it would really add if people were like, look, this tank's awesome. We've had 4 deaths in it.
That might add to it.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to climb Mount Everest, and people die every year,
Oh, yeah.
I think the easiest 2 things to do would be like flying, like vintage airplanes or tanks. Vintage airplanes, one good thing with that is you could actually tour around with them. You know what I'm saying? Like you could take them to different airports and stuff like that. But I honestly think if you had, P-51s, there's a decent number of them, but there are, they're limited, P-30, like any of your vintage World War II airplanes are like some of the like older jets. Now you're talking a little bit more money to get into, but those are actually appreciating assets and are going to at least hold their value, if not go up in value.
Especially since you're using it.
Yeah. But you're going to have people from all over the world who are going to come and be more than happy to pay you lots of money to fly in those airplanes. You there's a place down in Orlando. Where's NASA? Not Orlando. Outside Orlando, Cape Canaveral.
Yeah.
And you can go and fly these F-104 starfighters, which are like from the Korean War / Vietnam War. And people pay like tens of thousands of dollars to go get trained in these.
Oh,
and last time I looked, and I could be wrong on this, but last time I looked, it seemed like there was like a waiting list, like a month-long waiting list to actually sign up. And now this is like a full training. Like they give you ground school and they take you up and do flights in them. And like you get signed off to fly an F-104. I mean, I'm not sure where you could rent an F-104 to fly by yourself, but you get signed off to do that.
See, the problem with Google searching these is I get a lot of figurines and models.
Yeah.
Tradeaplane.com. Says there's 2 for sale.
F-104s or?
Yeah.
We don't want F-104s. F-104 is not a kind.
Okay. So the good news is right next to the price it says get financing.
Yeah. If you pick, like I said, these things are so.
One of them, the cheap one, is $325,000.
Oh wow, that's actually way cheaper than I thought it was going to be for an F-104.
The other one is $950,000.
Oh, well, don't look at the P-51 then, because you're going to be upset.
Well, now that you think the P-51 costs more,
Definitely.
but I would assume it's a lot simpler of an engine.
I mean, yes and no, I guess. It's a piston engine. It's probably a lot more work that needs to be done on that than like some of the jet engines. Jet engines are actually relatively reliable and simple comparatively,
Okay, so search P-51. The only thing I found is a North American AT-6C, which is $172,000.
It's a Texan.
Yes.
Yep. We could definitely have one of those. That would be like your base model, like your entry level. I just want to go fly in a vintage plane.
Yeah.
I mean, people would pay, and then if you could get a bomber or a larger airplane, like a DC-3 or a C-47 or something like that.
Yeah.
You could obviously take more than one person at a time. And then now we're talking about people paying just to fly in them. Then you could even do like training stuff where you'd have like a week, like, hey, $10,000, you come here for a week. We have lodging set up. You go to ground school and then you get trained to fly a P-51 or your choice. Like what? Now I want to fly an I want to get trained to fly an F-86 Sabre. I want to fly an F-80. Like that's what I want. I want to be able to fly an F-86 Sabre. I want to be like type rated in an F-86 Sabre. I have plenty of money. I'm going to spend $10,000. I'm going to spend a week in Vegas and I'm going to learn how to fly an F-86. There are enough people who are obsessed with aviation. This isn't like the tank thing where we need like hundreds of people a week or a month to come in and do this. We need like 1 or 2 dudes per month to be coming in to do,
Which I think is a great add-on business. Getting that started's got to be rough, though.
Honestly, hey, what about this?
McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom.
No, hang on. Dude, I got it.
Okay.
We don't buy these planes.
Okay.
We contact people who have these planes. How long do you think it takes to sell a $1.8 million Mustang?
Probably a long time.
Price sits on the market for a long time. So we're like, hey, you put this up for sale, move it to our location. We're going to use it. This is what we're going to use it for.
Yeah.
And it's free advertising. We'll pay you some percentage of.
There you go.
Of what it.
Now we're leasing it.
Yeah. We're basically leasing it from the owner. It's still for sale. Because now you get a rich guy who comes in and they're like, man, I want to learn how to fly a P-51 Mustang. Right?
Yeah.
They come and they fly a P-51 Mustang. They get type rated. They get trained. They can now go and fly a P-51 Mustang. And they're like, oh, by the way, guy who has millions of dollars, who wasn't in the market, who wasn't looking for, they just wanted a neat experience. And you're like, you can buy this thing for, $1.8 million, or what was it, 1.2?
Yeah, there's a couple of them now. Yeah, they're 2.7 is what they're looking for.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because those guys are sitting on those planes and they're not making any money.
No.
So now they send them to us. We either work out some sort of deal where we are paying them some sort of just flat monthly thing, or we're paying them a percentage of the profits or where, but it's free advertisement for them.
We're also maintaining their planes.
Yeah. We're fixing anything that could possibly go wrong. We're maintaining it. Also, I feel like someone who's going to buy that doesn't care that it's getting used.
Oh,
because if it's getting used and maintained properly, I think that's actually a selling point. If I were going to go spend $2 million on a plane, I don't have $2 million to spend, but if I did, I would want one that was being used regularly. These are like planes that are built in the 1940s. They have more hours on it. Like, that's not a thing. It's not like you're like, oh man, this thing has a lot of miles on it.
Yeah.
You're like, I know this thing has a lot of miles on it. So you could even, like, I feel like someone who has a plane and they have this asset that's $2 million and they're making, not only are they not making money off of it, they're having to pay to have it maintained, pay to have it stored, pay to, keep it up to date and everything.
Yeah.
So we're going to say, hey, look, move it to our facility. It'll be in a climate controlled facility. You won't have to pay for storage. You won't have to pay for advertising. We'll take care of the advertising because people are going to be coming in, like they're going to see it. And you won't have to pay for maintenance. We're going to maintain everything.
Yeah. And anytime you want to fly out, just give us like a week or two heads up, and it's yours.
Yeah.
Take it for a test.
I mean, that's basically what people do now. Different world, but people who have private jets, people don't fly around in their private jets all the time. I mean, some people do, obviously.
Yeah.
But a lot of people who have private jets, they just get a company to operate these planes for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they hire, this company takes care of the pilots and the insurance and we pay them. Like, we're basically saying, hey, instead of you sitting here just sitting on this $2 million piece of equipment that you're not using and having to pay for it to sit there, we're going to pay for insurance, maintenance, storage, upkeep, everything. And we're going to make money off of it. And we'll pay you some percentage of
some small
profits.
Percentage. Hey, we might we'll definitely cover the mortgage on it, but like, hey, we're not going to go crazy.
But I mean, that's what people do with their business jets. They buy business jets and they're like, hey, I'm only flying this like 30 days out of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let some other company manage it.
Yeah.
And they can charter it out for
whatever,
basically any time when I'm not there.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll cover my cost. If it doesn't cover my cost, it'll at least cover, some of my cost.
Yeah. As long as you don't show up and there's like Cheetos in the seat, you'll be.
Can we see if there's anywhere where you can fly like some of these old warbirds, like a P-51? I know I keep harping on that, but I mean, there are people who I think would pay. There are plenty of people who would pay. If you had a P-51 that you offered rides in, I think you would be the only person who did that. So you would have people from traveling from all over the world to come fly this P-51.
That's a good point. Because if they got to fly it, I mean, that's totally different.
Well, I'm saying fly in it, fly it. Doesn't really matter.
Warbird Flights, Warbird Adventures, Florida. See, now this is the kind of thing I wouldn't mind being closer to, like an ocean or.
But I just think Vegas would be the perfect spot for this.
Ooh, B-17. Hold on.
Yeah, bomber would be good because you can carry more than one person.
Yeah. And like, if you have a wife, right, you're going to have to do a bomber because your wife isn't going to let you spend $2,000.
Our wives aren't, but like if you're if you're worth a couple $1 million and you're like, I just want to go spend this, spend $3,000 to fly this P-51.
Yeah. Like
your wife probably doesn't care that much,
Yeah. Like you just said, another $1 billion and you're Paul Bezos off Prime Day. You're like, we'll go fly all these planes real quick.
They got a 30-minute ride and a 50-minute ride.
In what?
P-51 Mustang.
Oh, wow. So if these guys are getting $2,000 off of a, what'd you say, 30-minute ride? And then 3,000, let's just say 4,000 an hour. That sounds like a good, because these are probably people who own the planes. I think the key to our business is advertisement, and we're basically like leasing the planes.
Yeah, I like that idea.
That also, get this, keeps our inventory up to date, because maybe we have a P-51 this week, but maybe we have, a P-40 or something else the next week. Like we're constantly getting new stuff in to fly.
So it does sound like.
Also, I think a key that these people aren't doing, at least you're looking at it, I'm not, but they're really only offering like 30-minute rides and hour rides I really think a cool thing to do would be like a full scale, like training. Like you come for like 2 weeks. Obviously we'd build it in to be like all inclusive. We put you up at one of the hotels on the Vegas Strip. We'd offer you shuttle back and forth. And like 8, 9, 10 in the morning, you get there, you do some ground school, you do some flying, and then you actually get signed off to fly a P-51 or a DC-3 or like whatever the case may be. And like you get you get guaranteed 5 hours of flight time and, 10 hours of ground time, a week or 2 weeks in Vegas or something. Because people pay for that, like with driving schools all the time. They'll pay to go
to drive a Ferrari around a track for $2,000. Oh, it's ridiculous. The other thing is, I wonder if you could post statistics like, hey, we've got this jet engine and this prop plane, but the prop plane makes $2,000 a week, and this one's only making like $200.
I mean, after a while, you could easily project that, and then like show people who are looking to. The hardest part, and maybe right off the bat, you'd have to go with something like a little bit cheaper or easier, or maybe even buy your first plane. Because I think the hardest part is going to get the first person to let you
use
their airplane.
Yeah, you just need somebody from World War II, can't fly it anymore, who kept their plane. So a lot of movie actors keep stuff from props and movies or whatever. Do you think anybody in World War II just like kept their gun or their airplane or their Humvee?
I don't think that's the way it worked, but maybe. I don't know.
They just flew it back?
I don't know. So I did $4,000 an hour. If you just had 5 people a month come and fly that plane, you're talking about a gross of about $250,000 a year. That's not net. Obviously, there's going to be fuel and upkeep price and stuff like that. And you got to pay instructors and you got to pay, you have to pay, but like that's $250,000 a year that somebody could possibly make instead of just having their plane. Because it's hard for me to imagine that those planes sell very fast. I bet they sit on the market for years before they sell.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest key is like you got a guy, a decent, like the cheapest hangar you can rent over here in Schenectady, where I fly out of, like the cheapest place you can rent is maybe it's like $300 to $500 a month. Now, granted, if you own a $2 million plane, you're probably not keeping your plane in a $500 a month hangar. And you're probably also not worried that much about $500 a month.
Yeah.
But now I'm saying, hey, let's say you're spending $1,000 a month on a plane. Because you're going to want, right? People are going to want to come and look at the plane. So I'm going to say, like, I'm going to have this bit polished AC climate controlled hangar with all these warbirds in it.
Yeah.
People are going to come by there and be like, man, this is awesome. Your plane is going to be polished, like where you can see yourself mirror reflection all the time. We'll set up, we'll take care of all of the, meetings and all the showings. Like when people come by to look at the plane, like we'll pick them up in a nice van. We'll bring them to the place. We'll coordinate everything. We'll take care of the advertising, and it's going to be in this awesome location in Vegas, not in your like Timbuktu, Geneseo, New York, at like your hangar that you're getting on the cheap. And you're not even having to pay for all of this. Like you're literally like, we're paying for the constant clean. Your plane's going to get cleaned once, one every time it gets used.
So we're pitching Jay Leno's garage, but for warbirds, and you can come visit and fly shit.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it.
You could probably do that for cars too, now that I'm thinking of it. But that would just be a little bit more weird because now you're driving on like a public road, and like people will pay to ride in cars, but people are going to want to pay to drive cars. Like I think there's plenty of people who are like, I'll pay to ride in P-51. Also, cars, I feel like is just kind of an overdone thing.
Yeah.
And people can keep those at their house or what, they're not paying the same amount of money to store cars as they would be airplanes. Yeah. What we're pitching is an awesome, well put together, really nice looking hangar, climate controlled storage where you're going to bring your plane and it's going to be for sale there. But while it's there, we're going to offer, and we'd have to have something in the contract that says like, hey, like you're leasing us this plane for maybe 6 months at a time or 12 months at a time or something. And if you sell it, that's fine. But the new owner needs to know that there's still 3 months left in the lease or something like that. Because we can't have people pay $15,000 to come train in it for a week. And then,
it's gone. Yeah.
And then, a week before their trip is scheduled, we have to call them up and say, hey,
Yeah, it's not here anymore.
or maybe it's just like a rolling 2-month schedule. Like we'll only schedule 2 months out.
Yeah.
And if you sell it, the new owner just has to know that there's, you know, a 2 months. And if you want to take your plane to do air, let's say you are an older guy who doesn't have his medical anymore or doesn't fly anymore, but you still own this $2 million plane that you want to go show off at air shows or something like that.
Yeah.
We have licensed, certified pilots who will take this plane to the air shows and fly it at the air shows and do all this stuff, which is once again more advertising for you.
Yeah, and we can fly the plane to wherever you're at. So, hey, you live in Texas, we're in Vegas. You need it for a weekend? Hey, we'll fly it down, right? It'll be nice and shiny. We'll get our mechanic on it or whatever.
Yeah, we'll even bring a regular plane full of mechanics and tools to like follow you around, in case something happens. Even like air show services, right? Like you own a Mustang and you want to do like an air show circuit, but you want people to like support you and back you up. We'll keep it at our hangar. We can fly it out and meet you wherever, or you can come and you can fly it, and we'll follow you around in our,
there you go,
our company plane with parts and mechanics and people to clean it and all that good jazz. And then
so
you
now
don't
we're
even
like
have to worry about it.
Now we have an air team.
Yeah.
See, I like that because now it's a team. So we'd be the best air team.
I think it's like a full service show plane thing.
Vertical integration, right?
That's a good name. I like that.
Yeah.
Hear me out. I like that.
All right. So I have a new segment I'm going to put in the show. It's called the business word of the day. So dumb. Okay. Word of day. I have to write it down or else I'll forget that we do this. All right. What do you think our business word of the day should be? End user. The end user is the person or group who will use the product produced by the project. So end users are going to be pilots and or tank drivers.
No.
The more you know and know exactly.
The end user will be, depends.
It depends on the business idea.
Well, yeah, the pilot thing, I would say the pilots would not be the end users.
The people that fly in to fly the planes?
Oh, those guys. I thought you meant like our pilots.
Oh, no.
But sometimes our end user would be the person who bought the plane.
That's true. Dang, man. We really crushed it on that one.
Wait, that was the entire segment?
That was the entire segment.
Yeah,
run it back. How long did we talk about end users?
1 minute. That's good.
Yeah, right?
No one wants to listen to end user agreements for more than 1 minute.
Yeah.
That's the business word of the day for next segment.
Maybe a good podcast.
Maybe we shouldn't call it word of the day when we're not doing the segment every day.
All right, edit. 3, 2, 1, cut. All right, this segment is called Business Word of the Week.
You're really putting us in a box here.
Yeah.
Now we have to do a segment a week.
Oh my gosh.
I'm really not a fan of this business word of the day.
Okay, it's already out. Cut it.
Hang on.
Thank you for listening to our show. To participate, send your comments or business ideas to thehangonpodcast@gmail.com. Keep us motivated by subscribing to us on YouTube and iTunes, and tell a friend. This is the Hang On Podcast. It was an honor. See you next week.